Welcome to Women Awakening. I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. We are changing the world one woman at a time. We're changing lives one woman at a time. And I'm so excited that I get to bring to you people that inspire me, women that are making a difference because they are motivated to do so. So today I have one of my favorite people here. Let me give you a little bit of information about her. Her name is Lola Wright. She describes herself as a fierce and loving entrepreneur, coach, and consultant with an electric and dynamic presence and an extraordinary ability to be in the moment. She's worked with the world's leading global financial institutions, healthcare and technology startups, emerging and innovative nonprofits, entrepreneurs, creatives, and cultural influencers. She has experience in supporting teams through transition and conflict. She's led organizational settings during nearly a dozen significant mergers and acquisitions. We'll chat about that. She has certified 15 commitment coaches with the Conscious Leadership Group, coach with the Life Ministry Mastery Institute, personal integration practitioner through Transformation School of Integrative Psychology, and she is an ordained minister through Emerson. Welcome, Lola.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. So Lola and I have crossed paths a number of times through a number of iterations, including me speaking at a spiritual center that she was the spiritual director of. And I just want to know, you are now out in the world. You are not inside an organization like a spiritual center. You are now out in the world. What are you doing? What's your passion of the moment?
Well, I mean, I feel like what I'm on the planet to do is support people in waking up and out of the psychosis of the status quo. I'm just like I'm sort of a person that blows up spaces, like my energy it's somewhat explosive, and it's really taken 42 years to learn how to be with that responsibly. But I feel like I've really created a life that feels fierce and loving, and I now want to help people identify what's your version of fierce and loving. What is your fierce and loving?
I love that. And I understand that big energy because I have one of those things too. And it took me a while to like be okay with it because I people would be like, whoa, could you just calm down a little bit? Um,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. You've had a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, with corporations and acquisitions and all of that stuff. And how does all of that support you today in doing the work you do?
I think I have an incredible capacity to speak to very esoteric principles in a super practical way. And so, one of my mentors says he smuggles donkeys. Like he brings consciousness into spaces and people don't even realize that they're having profoundly spiritual conversations. And I think that that's someone called me the Eckhart Tolle of the streets. And
Mhm.
I would say, like, yeah, that feels true because part of what feels important for me is making this material accessible to people, and whether that be in a corporate environment where someone is not anticipating having a conversation about universal principles and practices, or whether that's being on a street corner with a young mom who's just like trying to get through the day.
Yeah, I totally get that. So let's talk about though that, I believe that this is a time where women are emerging on the planet, that this
Mhm.
is our time to bring our gifts and our talents and our wisdom, and with the big personality that you have and the big mission that you have, and you are a woman,
Mhm.
how did you navigate finding the ways to bring this energy into the world and be in total confidence with yourself?
It has been a long road of discomfort and self love, honestly, because it was very clear to me at a pretty young age that the world, culture, my community was not going to validate the bigness of who I am, because it was really disruptive. It was countercultural. It was not comfortable. I mean, I grew up in an environment where it's like, really, you're here to look cute and to be nice. And like really anything more than that is really inconvenient, you know? Now, gratefully, I had a grandmother who like just was willing to say whatever was there, and my mother was the same. But I will say that the women in my family were always created as crazy because they were bold, because they were confident, because they were willing to say the thing. I was raised with an idea that the women in my family were crazy.
Oh wow, this is so cool. I had a grandmother too, and the women in my family were basically victims, and
Mhm.
that's how they played out their life. But my grandmother, I mean, she was deep and bold, and she was taking me to places and introducing me to things. She said, because you are going to be on a mountaintop. You are here to talk to people. That's who she was. Thank goodness for them. And that's the kind of grandmother I want to be.
Yes.
Yeah, the world is your oyster. Go for it, right? So I saw one of your newsletters or something came across, and it was to white people,
Hmm.
and it was about what's going on in our country primarily, but on the world in terms of
Hmm.
oppression and systemic racism and stuff. And I want to talk about that because you got a bold voice where this is concerned. And first of all, how are you with it? And then what do you want to talk about?
Hmm. Yeah. So, the first week or 2 weeks following George Floyd's murder, I felt a lot of anger. And specifically, my anger was to the response of white people, mainly because I've been having this conversation around racism in America for 30 plus years. I mean, I was active in this conversation at 10, 11, 12, 13 because it was very obvious to me. And I was not appreciated for 30 plus years being the one who brings this up in primarily white spaces. That's not appreciated, you know? And so I felt a big wave of anger. Like, why now? I mean, I get it. You saw a video, but you also saw a video when Eric Garner was killed. And he actually said the exact same words: I can't breathe. So why now? One of my theories is this narrative, this propaganda of looting got developed, and all of a sudden, white property owners felt threatened. And so, thereby, a response occurred. So, I mean, I have lots of theories that we could go down the rabbit hole on. I'll spare you those. But I think that it's important to look at for white identified people to really get honest with themselves. And I think that there's a whole matrix of things that have happened, like Donald Trump really did make good on his promises. He really did do, like, what I appreciate about Donald Trump is the man has incredible integrity.
Mhm.
Everything he said he was going to do in the year and a half leading up to the election, he has fulfilled on and more. Now, what's fascinating to me is that a lot of white people thought it was rhetoric. I'm like, under what circumstances would we be comfortable even if it is rhetoric? So I
Right.
think that we're now approaching 5.5 years, really, if you take the campaign plus his presidency into account. We're at 5.5 years of racist rhetoric overtly, not covertly, overtly on a national stage in this country. Then we got hit with a pandemic. So now all of a sudden you can't numb out because you can't just watch sports.
Right.
We've also been bombarded with media outlets, so you can't get away from the conversation. And then George Floyd is murdered, and so I do think that there's sort of this uh, grossly perfect storm that has occurred. And I, over the last, 7 weeks since George Floyd's murder, I've been navigating a lot within myself. And all of a sudden, the people who didn't want to hear me talk about race are calling me and texting me to talk about race. And there's a part of me that's like, so now you want me to be available on your watch when you had no interest in being available on my watch. Now, once I get beyond my reactivity, because I'm really committed to honoring my process, it's like, okay. That is actually what's occurring. Just want to be clear. So, okay, now we're ready. Now, who am I going to be? Because fundamentally, what I am committed to is dismantling racism in America. And so then now there's a readiness. Okay, let's go.
Well, this is so interesting to me because you're a Caucasian woman, you're not a millennial. What's the one? Just what's the one?
I
Yeah,
think I'm a Y.
yeah, yeah. But still, you're young, and I watched you
Mm,
in your spiritual community be completely dedicated to inclusivity,
mhm,
to diversity, to reaching out into the community
mhm,
and connecting with faith-based places of color. I mean,
mhm,
I watched it, and I watched, I too have been getting a lot of phone calls and a lot of text messages and things, and I feel like, whoa, then let's go to the table and talk. Let's do that.
mhm.
Let's come out of our little corners and let's go talk. So here's the thing. There's women that are listening to this that didn't come on the planet as bold Lola or
Mhm,
bold Cynthia. They are trying to find their voices. They're trying to bring their light to the planet.
mhm.
You know, what do you want to say to them about stepping into their personal power?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want all human beings and specifically women to understand that their self-expression is thwarted by design. You were birthed into a system and a structure and a consciousness that was so deeply terrified by the power that lives at the center of your being that an entire structure was designed to suppress it. And I think that it's really important to get that, because if you can get that, then you can start. I think a lot of women feel like, am I crazy or did that really just happen? Like, I'm sitting in a board meeting, I just contributed a brilliant thought. It's as if no one heard it. And moments later, he says it. And all of a sudden, everybody thinks it's the most brilliant idea they've ever heard of. And then what women will do is will go, did that just happen? The one in you that questions yourself, imagine it was implanted by a society that is seduced by separation. So this was implanted in you to second guess yourself. So first, let's just get that.
Yes.
Because then we can be like, okay, so there actually is something at play here. And this is where I think I can get sort of frustrated with the thinness of so many spiritual conversations, because it doesn't actually speak to the nuance of identity, the material realm, the seduction of our humanity, the trance of personality, like all of those things. So first, let's just get okay, so here's where we are. Racism is real. Race is a made up construct to support the system of racism.
And sexism is
Exactly.
real.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes,
That's right. So,
yes.
and we could say sexism is real and gender is a made up construct, and those are very big ideas that, we're not going to be able to sort of flesh out here today. But, I just, the other thing I like to really support people in understanding is in this culture, we are highly identified with our IQ, with our thinking mind. There's an over identification with our IQ, and we are largely dislocated from our EQ, our emotional intelligence, and
Mhm,
our BQ, our body intelligence,
mhm.
also by design.
Right.
Your body and your feelings are these incredible wisdom centers that women are sort of uniquely tapped into. So if I mean, there are a lot of nuances, but it's like when you feel that thing in your gut, that something's like nudging you, listen, there's something there for you.
Absolutely. So, so I want you to tell people where to find you, but I also, what are you doing that my tribe can tap into to support their growth and their health and their well-being?
Yeah, so I'm doing 21 weeks to Election Tuesday. So I'm doing 3 7-week courses called Normal White People. And this course is something that was birthed out of the last presidential election because I went to drop my kids off at school one morning. And at the time, my kids were at this, very expensive elite private school. And all these white women were crying as they were dropping their children off. And I was like, what is happening right now? They were devastated and couldn't imagine that in their United States of America, Donald Trump could get elected. And I was shocked by the shock. And then we started to look at the statistics of who overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. And I want to be clear, what I'm speaking to is not a partisan conversation. I am not pointing to your political party. I'm talking about a particular sexist, racist rhetoric that was used strategically. And overwhelmingly, college educated women voted for that. So there's like a real lack of awareness in white culture around how and why race was constructed. And I wanted to create a course to support white identified people in developing their racial consciousness. So that's one thing.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay. And your website's what?
LolaWright.com.
Okay. And what's
Yeah.
the second thing?
I have a new podcast that I'm launching in September. And so I'm super, super excited about that. It's sort of like the details of it are in the works. But, basically, as you said earlier, like I think in part out of survival, I have developed a comfort with my fierce and loving presence because I had to learn to love it because society and my family even was like, "Nah, mm." So if I didn't love me, it was going to be a long, lonely road. With that in mind, I really want to continue to devote my work to supporting people and identifying what their fierce and loving life looks like. Like if you could give yourself full range, if we could transcend what I like to call Minnesota nice, which
Well,
is
that's where I'm from, and I totally get it.
that's hysterical because I didn't know that. That's a real thing though. It's like
Oh,
it's
it's
like
totally a real thing.
yeah, and women are so trained to be that.
Oh,
And so
totally.
if we could support one another in liberating ourselves from our suppressed self-expression such that we can access our full range of emotional intelligence, wow, what could be possible then? So that's, really what I'm up to.
Nothing big. So the last thing I ask this question of every guest. What is the one thing you want women to walk away with from this conversation about their own growth, their own reason for being on this planet at this moment? What do you want to tell them?
Hmm. I mean, I'm gonna break the rules and not just say one thing, but
Of course.
okay. I mean, true to form,
Fierce and loving.
right? So, number one, trust yourself.
Mhm.
Like you are worthy of trusting. Something in you knows. Something in you knows who and what you're here to be. Something in you knows when something's off, and that's worthy of listening to. The other thing is like, I really want women to own their sexual aliveness. And when I say that, I don't mean like your sexual prowess. I don't mean like your capacity in bed. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your creative capacity, the thing that you feel like in your pelvis that's just like, ah. I think that, the idea of living in our full aliveness, if we're not up to that, if that's not what we're calibrating to, what in the world is the point?
Absolutely. Well, Lola, you continue to inspire me. you know, as a collaborator in life and as a witness to your expansion on the planet and you're bringing your voice. And thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful.
I am so grateful. And Cynthia James, because you exist and because of your willingness to take up as much space as you do, there are those coming behind you that are able to do that a little more lightly. So thank you.
My pleasure, darling. I love you.
I love you too.
Ladies, you know, we post new podcasts several times in a month. Please come back and do that. I want you to remember that you're essential, that you're here on this planet because you matter, because your presence, your voice, your wisdom matters. So go out into the world, awaken, and assist other people in awakening. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Many blessings.